Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Michael.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're meeting today. I would like to discuss with you, for our listeners, the text that is going to be posted on the website about the precession of the equinoxes and the matrix. This is something that came to my mind last week, a few days ago. And I think that I have a quite interesting idea how to mix both, understanding how our matrix is actually functioning. So my suggestion would be, if you will, can you please read the beginning of the text and start asking me questions?
Sure. So the text begins Precession and Space-Time. Let's dream. In 2021, the Smithsonian reported that the beginning of the Homo sapiens lineage most likely dates back 550,000 to 750,000 years. Mythology tells us about 7 creators, exteriorization of the infinite and unfathomable consciousness. Each creator anchors a specific frequency. The 7 lords, or 7 creative consciousnesses, are the rishis in the East. The Hebrew lords, or 7 creative consciousnesses, are the rishis. I'm sorry. We have to start over.
I love it. I think I think we should put this on the internet.
Sure. All right. Let me just pick it up from there. We're gonna cut it. Let's imagine we're gonna cut all this. The 7 lords or 7 creative consciousnesses are the rishis in the East, the Hebrew Elohim, the archangels, or 7 spirits of God in Christian theogony. So wait a minute, Michael. Are you suggesting that these are all referring to the same 7 entities?
You mean the 7 entities are called under different names according to the tradition, but they are the same. Yes. So we are speaking about the true Elohim, not their kids, okay, in the Bible, the true creator gods. So in Hebrew, they would be the Elohim. In the Christian tradition, so 2,000 years later, they are called the archangels. And the Eastern tradition, they are called the rishis, or the lords of the constellations.
But these were just culturally different expressions for the same 7 principles or the same 7 creator gods is what you're calling
Yes,
them, right?
yes.
But what I'm used to hearing God is singular, and now you're telling me there's 7 creator gods. Am I
Well,
confused?
in my discussions, in my internal discussions, and my relationship with God, I have evolved from when I was a kid, thinking about one God, to understanding that they were layers of consciousness, I would say, and that God is much bigger than we want to believe, or the infinite. So I make a difference in my writings and in the way I speak and feel, and the way I function, between the creators that are the manifestation of something that cannot be manifested, that cannot be reached, and that I personally call the infinite consciousness. So in my writings, I would use two different things. I would speak about God with a capital G as the big one that I don't know nothing about, that is too mysterious, too big for me as a human being to even fathom. And the ones that are closer to us because they are in the manifested world, that I would call the creators. Well, that I associate with the word creators. So they are the hands of God. They are the manifestation of God. And in this case, in my writings, I use the term creator God or God with a lowercase. Go ahead.
I get it. So going back to the tongue twister here, the exteriorization is the seven creator gods.
Yes.
And the God, the one God, the capital G, as you say, is what you call here the infinite and unfathomable consciousness.
Yes.
Okay, so far so good.
So we are starting with setting our our basis, our foundation for the discussion. So according to mythology, according to many stories, we have seven creators or seven archangels or one archangels and others participating in the story of human beings. And my understanding is that they hold the space in which the human race is evolving. And this text is about the way they hold the space. I believe that human beings are the product of the merging of the frequencies and the capacities of all these creators manifested through constellations in the Milky Way.
Okay, well, why don't we read the next sentence because I think you've already started to describe it.
Okay, go ahead.
So it goes on, the seven hold the illusory space in which the human race is evolving as a jewel, merging the gifts and growing pains of the seven in the fecund womb of the Milky Way. That's what you're referring to.
Yes, so this text is, very tight, okay? So what it summarizes is the idea that the seven creators participate one after the other in the creation of the human race, and they are all represented. No, actually, they are not in the Milky Way. Well, yeah, they are all represented in the Milky Way, but they take turn, I think, in the leading of the Milky Way.
I have a question that's emerging that I'm not sure is going to be a distraction
It's
or
okay. No, we can go. We can have fun.
well, I mean, I got this image of you remember the Russian dolls, right?
Yes.
Um, is this exteriorization, and I'm going to keep referring to the text so that I can use your language. Is this exteriorization of the infinite and unfathomable consciousness occurring, um, in a linear way, or are the seven creator gods independent creations that are sort of seven separate creations, or does one lead to the next?
Well, in the Theosophic tradition, they speak about rounds. They speak about layers. To understand that, we can refer to human anatomy, spiritual anatomy. We have a physical body, and then we have spiritual bodies. And they all one day will work together, but they are not all appearing at once. We need to, from the physical world, we need to feel and then add more layers to our consciousness, and therefore create or add more spiritual bodies. We don't have immediately, we have an astral body, an etherical body, but we don't have a monadic or a spiritual self immediately. This is added. And I think for this can describe what is happening in terms of the creation of the earth. there was the planet, and then with consciousness, the planet goes through different rounds and either adds or remerge. Same thing for us. We remember, and then we add to our known world more and more and more layers. So the seven are one with God. So more and more layers would be revealed, exteriorized, materialized. And each of them brings a layer to Earth and to us.
So then the Russian doll idea is apt
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah, we could use that. We could use the Russian doll.
Interesting.
I forgot to stop my phone. This is really an exercise. Okay, so what I thought was very interesting is that there is an idea in India that the seven creators have something to do with the precession of the equinox. So maybe you could read the paragraph that starts with Old India.
Sure.
Paragraph 6.
Yes. In old India, the precession of the equinoxes was seen as an imaginary line or great circle passing through the poles of the ecliptic and the beginning of the fixed star Maga Regulus, the royal star, which circle was supposed to cut some of the stars of the Great Bear, the seven stars being called the rishis. The circle, so assumed, was called the line of the rishis. The seven are then the lords of time or chronocrators.
So in my last book, Who is Your Creator God, I speak about 7 constellations that would be the 7 chakras of a creator God. So the Great Bears is a constellation. The constellation, the Great Bear, is supposed to be, according to mythology, is supposed to be the house of the riches. So the Great Bear with 7 main stars would be the house of the creators. And from there, they are holding a line, an imaginary line or a great circle. And then we relate with time. They are called the Lord of Time, the chronocrators. So from there was an idea. But in order for people to understand, maybe we should look at this video explaining what the precession of the equinoxes is.
That would be great.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do it, and I'll see you later. Okay, we have no sound. It's okay. It was music. So this shows the Earth moving on its axis, and the Earth is inclined. And when while the Earth is moving on its axis, the Earth is not completely round. It has a bulge at the midsection, just like us. Okay. Yeah. And while the Earth is moving at its axis, orbiting, the middle axis going through the poles is creating this circle at the bottom and at the top. And because of that, the timing of the equinoxes, the beginning of the year, moves from one constellation to the other. Would have been nice if we had the music, but okay. I think the animation is quite nice.
Yes.
Yes. So the important thing is to imagine the Earth moving like that and crossing the stars and the constellations. So the axis of the Earth, magnified here as a pole, is moving. And the interesting thing is that, so now we are here. Okay, so our polar star is Polaris. Then, but in 2000 BC, it was Tuban in the Draco constellation. Then in 9000 BC, it was in Vega. So 9000 BC until now, this is about 11 to 12,000. Okay. The Earth's rotational axis, this is part of the text, points at our polar star, Polaris, or Alpha Ursae Minoris, the brightest in the Little Dipper. This axis moves and traces a circle across the stars, implying the precession of the equinoxes. Precession means movements. It takes about 20,000 years for the Earth to precess through the full circle. So the Earth is going to do the circle like that, and it takes 26,000 years. Okay, so how are the 26,000 years calculated? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay, so it has been determined that the Earth moves 1 degree every 72 years. So a circle is 360 degrees. If you multiply 72 by 360, you reach 25,920 years. Okay. So now there are some calculations that are more modern, and they seem to say that the exact count would be 1 degree in 71.6 years. So we are roughly at 25,776. Okay. So this was called the Great Year of Plateau, by the way. You had a question. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. My first question is, are there 7 stations? Because I'm only counting 5 here, right?
No, we don't have 7 stations. Because this refers, according to my hypothesis, this refers to one creator or one cycle for one creator.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see there is more to your answer by the end.
Can I go back to another question that I have also?
Sure.
You're talking about this holding of space, holding illusory space in which the human race is evolving. It almost sounds like I just came back from spending the morning with my son at school. It almost sounds like a playgrounds where each grade gets to develop, right?
Well,
So,
that's exactly the point of this paper. What I realized while thinking about the precession of the equinox is that, yes, it looks like the way the Earth is moving in space and the way the precession is happening, organized, delimited, creates this space. And to me, this is what I have written that is the most important part of this paper. The movement of the axis, the shifting of the North Star delimits a space traced in heaven within which the manifestation of the divine dream enfolds. In the Hebrew tradition, we read that in order for creation to exist, God, the big guy, had to restrict himself and restrict his light. This is called the movement of the Tzimtzum. And by restricting his light, he created a space, the big guy, created a space within which manifestation can happen. So manifestation implies time. Time, chronocraters, markers of time, the 7 creators. So when the creators appear and start moving within time, okay, God imposes a restriction and emanates a dimensional space-time. So there is a playground that is created, and only in this playground, under the rulership of the 7 manifestations of God, can creation happen. And this space-time is the first part of our matrix. We can only exist in matter and in time. So this space-time was emanated and is showed, delimited by the movement of the Earth. I exist in this space showed here in the stars, in heaven, within those constellations.
And so the illusion of time is created because we get to measure how long it takes to get from one place in reference to one of these stars.
Or because those stars' energy fields impose, we would have to go to astronomy and physics. It's not just an illusion. I think that there is all the system, the astronomical system of all those bodies working together and imposing this space-time. And because we have all these constellations around us, their field create the geomagnetic field within which we can live.
That's fascinating. That feels well above my pay grade, as they say. I have a lot of questions, but I don't think they're relevant to what we're working with today.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it seems fascinating. It's sort of chicken and the egg question, right?
Okay.
Because one, I always want to place myself, the human, as in the center of the story, but I'm just an emanation of all these things, right? I'm not. These things aren't serving me. I serve them, or I'm a reflection of them, right? I'm the flower in this system, as opposed to Um, boy, I've sort of talked myself in a
Yeah,
corner.
yeah, that's good.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that self-reference keeps coming back and forth, right? Whether this is how I learn and therefore the system is supporting me. If I go back to the playground and I had a playground, let's say Earth was a playground, but we're just going to make it as a playground. Then if we divided spaces for particular um, developmental stages that needed to happen, right? Because we already
Mhm.
understand
Yeah,
that
yeah.
a 0 to 2 year old needs a certain kind of space, and 2 to 4 year old will need a different kind of space. Um, so I guess I just want to get into the unpacking, like, is this because this is how I am, or is this because this is how the universe is? And I don't know if that's
I think it's interrelated. Imagine that you are outside, walking outside, and it starts raining.
yeah,
What is happening first?
right.
You're walking, the reaction to the rain. I really like the sentence that it was not from me. I heard it from someone years ago. Um, the idea according to which we are the feedback
Mm,
system of the creator.
mm,
So we are part of him and of it. And
mm,
basically, whatever emanated from this gigantic mind created us. And now we are interacting constantly. So, who is first? Who is serving who? Well, I have to say that the more I discovered about what is the creator and my role into that, the more humble I am. And the more I realized also that um, the idea that we find in the very old texts, according to which becoming a creator is accepting the great sacrifice. Okay. Because when a creator or when any entity or any part of the infinite consciousness accepts to remove itself from the light, there
mm,
is an immediate, there is all the consequences, the suffering of all the consequences of being incarnated at any level, whether it's at the human level or at the creator God level. So,
because it
um,
immediately creates the consequence of lack of light.
yes, yes. And it's not just for us. So, what I would like to introduce now is that the idea that we have always kept in our traditions about the importance of the pole,
Yeah.
North Pole. So the North Pole is not just something that was important even in the past for the sailors, or to recognize how to have a direction. There is an intimate intuition, an intimate understanding that is evidenced in mythology, according to which the North has always been felt as the North, the axis, okay, has always been felt as the place where the gods are. The North, actually, there is, in one tradition, we speak also about the South, but in most belief systems, the gods are supposed to be North. And I think this because, in fact, it depends where you are on the planet. Your North is different. It reflects our sense of need of alignment. We constantly have to adjust, just like when we walk, we have to walk straight, or our spinal column and our skeletons have to be in alignment so that we can be healthy. if we have one leg that is smaller than the other, or if we have our sacrum that is disbalanced, we don't feel good. So energetically speaking, and in terms of frequency, I think that human beings have always known that they need to align to something. This is their access. So, for instance, in the Hindu tradition, we have Mount Meru that is considered the sacred mountain. Okay, and the axis works is at the center of this mountain. So this picture, for instance, is showing the churning of the ocean, but this is another story, and it's treated in a different video. Okay, so what is important to keep in mind, if I summarize with the text: the north, the polar mountain, the crown, all these concepts have been associated with spirit, heaven, the deities. North would be the closest point to the deities with whom human beings must find alignment and directions.
It's interesting, you know, to orient yourself on a map. We always choose north on top. It's our sense that we have this feeling that there has to be a top and a bottom to things, even though we're on a
Yes.
circle.
Yes.
You know, we're floating in space. It doesn't really make any sense that we would need a bottom. So this is fascinating. And I'm noticing in your picture here that it's divided in two shades, right? There's beings that look more illuminated on one side, and there's beings that look shadowed on the other side, right?
Because as soon as there is manifestation, there is division between the light and the darkness, and both are necessary to reach the alignment. They are working together as a team to be able to execute the churning of the ocean.
Because this is how we balance, right? On one point.
Yeah. So to this idea, we need to add another concept. So the present, my belief is that the present 26,000 year cycle started under the leadership of Vega. So Vega was at the top here. Where was Vega? Oops. Okay, we have to do it again. I'll do it differently. It's okay. Our listeners will have to be patient. So my belief is that this cycle started under the leadership of Vega about 26,000 years ago. And this is logical with the idea that in about 13,000 years, our north will be oriented towards the Lyra and Vega again. So we started with Vega, and we do the whole circle within the space that we are living in, okay? And then we return towards Lyra constellation. So this is a representation of the Lyra. And what is interesting is that Lyra is a bird, but it is often seen as a falling bird. The bird represents spirit. So if the bird is falling, it means that spirit is coming down. So that's already an idea. And when spirit is coming down, it is because spirit starts creating. And my understanding is that the deity transferred its idea of creation or its frequency to materialize on the constellation Draco. That would explain all the stories of the creators, especially the one called Michael, taming a dragon. Michael is taming it. He's not crashing or killing a dragon. He's not killing a bad entity. He's taming his own consciousness manifested in the constellation of Draco. And Draco is part of our story here. Draco is at the center of our playground. Draco is at the center of this multidimensional space and this space-time in which we can exist.
So Draco is the center of our universe, going back to this idea that I place the human as the center of the universe.
Somewhere like that. And that also explains why, although it took a few years for spiritual seekers and New Agers to accept the idea according to which we have a reptilian DNA and we are all connected to reptiles. We're all connected to the great dragon. So in our DNA, we have the input coming from the Lyra constellation that is transmitted through the sun. And that's why the Lyra is associated with Apollo, the sun god, singing for us. Okay. And eventually the lyre, the musical instrument, is transmitted to Orpheus, who needs to go into the underworld. This is a big story. Okay. So our race started with Lyra and Draco. So the mixing of the two energies, the birds and the reptiles. And we find it here. Do you know what that is? It's not a bird.
It's not a turkey.
It's a dinosaur.
Sure. Well, the dinosaurs have been in my mind since you started talking about the Draco.
Exactly. And so it's funny because I was reading a kid's book about dinosaurs. And then I thought, well, sure, this is a dinosaur. It's considered a dinosaur, but it has wings and it's not the only one. This is a fun one that I decided to introduce into our presentation.
It's a great picture.
Not only they have wings and feathers, but they have hollow bones like birds. So that would mean that this is one of the steps, you know, the creator is launching an idea, poof, it manifests and it does this. And the idea is a frequency. And so this frequency is mixing the birds and the reptiles. And then there is more evolution and we reach the dinosaurs that are more, you know, closer to the lizards and so on. And then we have something else. We have us.
So it's interesting because at some level we're dealing with concepts, but on another level we're dealing with literal building blocks of creation, manifested building blocks, physical chemistry and physics in a real physical world. But
yeah, it should all fit. It should be logical. But
no, there's no but. I think I just want to get to this part, which is, so the idea from, I assume from one of the creator gods, or is this idea from the infinite consciousness coming through the Lyra and into the Draco?
I think they are one with the infinite consciousness. So it could be both. It could be the father, giving his children the ability to play, because we cannot believe that we are the only existing thing. We already know that within our Milky Way, there are a multitude of different beings, but the Milky Way is an tiny, tiny, tiny part of what exists.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because first of all, let me just acknowledge that we didn't think this was going to go so well, but it seems like it's going just fine. Because a lot of the ideas that I'm picking up on seems like are there. You're either addressing them before I ask, or I'm able to ask because you've addressed something else. The thing that makes and I'm just talking about questions that just appear. So there were birds before. And there were dinosaurs or reptilians before, but then they were merged. Because in some way, as still the human wanting to be in the center of the story, in the center of the universe, I want to believe like you're telling me the origin of all things.
Well, if we have the merging of 7 creators,
yeah,
that involves evolution and linear time. Yeah. So we cannot be now and there always the same thing. And then every time that there is a new cycle, we can have a cycle of expansion, retraction. So I'm not saying that there was never a civilization that was bigger than us. I'm saying that we are within a cycle. And before that, there were probably many other cycles during which human beings evolved and fell.
But are you saying
within that, there was this big thing in the background that could be, the nothingness, the chaos of the dragon. The dragon is often connected to chaos, and the organization of the thought process, or the manifestation of the thought process of the gods, that evolves slowly.
So the manifestation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. There are two things going on together.
Sure. So the manifest. So there's this manifesting, evolving, forming thought process of the gods that's acting upon. It came to me, the primordial soup of chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So then these cycles, I it's funny. I'm thinking of my son. My son's about to graduate 5th grade. So you send them to school, and the school, you send them to school so they can learn to be, functioning humans, and they start in the beginning with all that intention. But it isn't until they complete the whole cycle that we actually expect them to be able to fly, right? I'm going back to the Lyra.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm starting to understand.
But at the same time, it's I think it's a little tricky, because, for instance, under Atlantis or other time, they were civilizations that were probably more evolved than we are here. So how can this be? So does it happen according to the precession? How do we, if we only think linear, it's kind of difficult to organize it. So the idea that I finish with in this paper is that it's just a hypothesis, of course. Okay, I am in a human body, so I have to recognize my limitations. But I was thinking, so if we have 7 creators, and they each took care of us for 25,920 years, so we multiply 7 by 26,000, and we have 1,270,000. But then we are supposed to be the fifth race. And we just finished 13,000, not a full precession cycle. So we would be at 5.5 cycles. So if we multiply, no, I imagine first that each creator has 7 cycles for himself. So we have 7 by 7, 49 cycle.
Mhm.
So we need to multiply 49 by 26,000. Okay. So now, if we are the fifth race, okay, we would have already passed 34.5 cycle. 5 multiplied by 7 plus a half. And that would lead us to, for our age, to about 900,000 years, 894,240. So that would fit with the ideas that came at the beginning, according to which the human being would most likely date back 550 to 750,000 years.
Right. It's within the margins there.
Yes. So anyway, that's something that we can continue talking about. The main thing in this paper is that our matrix is really held by the constellation and the stars, and the position and movement of our axis delimits our matrix and our space-time. Your turn.
Well, I think I just need to let that sink in.
Okay. Well, we are going to post that on the website and see what happened with it. Okay.
That would be great.
Thank you for participating in that. And for the others, thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you for sharing your ideas with us and for allowing me to participate and for entertaining my questions. I really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing.